This is this is just sort of an open conversation that I have with the universe, um, because sometimes when I have what I call it's not really downtime. It's you're flexible. In other words, it's what a holding pattern is. Anybody that's a wing commander knows what a holding pattern is. So there's a TV series that came out. So there's no coincidence why I would choose to experience that. And it's actually pretty fun. You could see how it would actually be addicting, because this is sort of another way in which disclosure takes place. But certainly there's so many informers, that is informing you of what they're experiencing by what they're aware of, that they share with others. Now you're aware of what they're aware of. And then how does that relate to what you're aware of when you're aware of it? So what's funny about all this is that this TV series that I think is put out by the Village Roadshow, it's called Peripheral. You know what peripheral vision is, right? So an example of that would be a little over a year ago when I was in Hilo on the Big Island, and I can sort of tilt my lens in one of my eyeballs and see things that you don't see if your eyes are in a different format, so to speak. Now you're seeing stuff that if you looked up again, as you normally would with your eyes, you don't see it. So it's like it's there, but it's not there. It's like being able to phase into something because your intention is to see it, and then it will be revealed to you because of the communication that you have with that energy, which is that consciousness and that soul. In this case, is Eve. Okay, God's mama. So, as I've always said this before, if you go to look at that particular series, you begin to see sort of what a time jumper is, securing the future. One timeline has merged with another one. And then you sort of see how this game is played, because through artificial intelligence, if you will. Then you see how this young woman, who's part of a team, see, they work as a team to perform missions, much like the way super soldiers do, right? Okay, so I realized when I was a child, and I've said this before, keep your mouth shut, okay, which means trust no one. So you realize you're a lone wolf, see, but I spent all my time in nature, which is who I hang out with, which is a goddess. So at the end of the day, and I've always said this, I work for a goddess, okay, which means the real gods and the real goddesses that are under attack, okay? So essentially what that means is I work on behalf of the one, because I am one, which is what love is. It goes on forever. And that means you are the most powerful force of energy that can be brought to bear in any universe, because it's our energy that created it with. They know that. Okay? So that's why in this little movie, it was funny how at about the 16-minute mark on episode 3, they're having a conversation back and forth, because they're dealing with security protocols between what they say to who they say it, when they say it to who they say it to. Okay? And that is very much in keeping with how it works. And I mentioned this before. What we know, when we know it, why we know it, when we know it. That's knowing. That's the security protocols. Because when we become aware of it, the AI becomes aware of it. Now it can use its assets against us. So now you realize the difference between fracturing souls, and fracturing souls that go dark light, black mirror, okay, which is the intelligent side, if you will, of artificial light, which is not living light, which is what I am, that goes on forever. So you can see the difference between the two is going to be the torque speed difference in deceleration and acceleration of superconductivity. So when you're a mated chip, which means you are the one, you're the fastest accelerator. So that allows you to be able to know what you know, when you know it, why you know it, when you know it, in order to protect and be aware of what's going on. So you have a way to be able to communicate and get communication through the heart at the time that you're supposed to know. So that's where I talk about prompts. I get self-prompted. Now I move on that prompt because I know it through the light, because there's a difference between living light and artificial light, and it's easy to know the difference. So you know the side you're working on behalf of the law of one, which is what love is. So it's very easy to sort the field between who is what love is and who isn't by simply measuring the consciousness field or the energy that you're mapping when you're in the proximity of any area that you are at, which means anywhere in a universe, we can know what's going on. In order to do what? Protect it. Because we can upload anything that we experience, no matter where we are, no matter what dimension we're in, wherever we happen to be, that we become aware of. When we become aware of that, we have ways to be able to share that information, upload that information in a way that they can't know what it is. It's one of the reasons I mentioned adjacent Shirka. It hasn't been invented yet. So then how does that work? They're not going to know. So what they don't seem to realize, because our side, the light side, which is living light side, which is law one, is faster than they are. They don't run at that same speed. Okay? So what it means is that even if I was to be aware of something, they can't extract something that doesn't exist yet. This is why when you think of the acceleration of learning, when you're learning through the light, like learning through a real goddess with a real spirit, with a real oversoul, you're learning at a higher rate of speed because you're choosing the side that you choose to learn through to become what that is. And you become what that is. When you become what love is as the energy that represents what you are, then you are with all that light. You are with that energy. That's called total surrender. They haven't learned to do that because they're simply not there yet. Okay? So what this means in terms of technology is that there is technology that they haven't even thought of yet, that doesn't even exist yet in their mind, which means we have the ability to use what it is we're aware of, because the accelerator of learning of what we know how to do is far faster than theirs. So what that means is they really don't know what we have that can be used, okay? Because they've never learned how that works, because they're not there yet. Because the ultimate answer in all this is if you allowed them to continue like a wildfire that spreads in any galaxy, in any universe, then you realize you don't have a galaxy anymore. You don't have a universe anymore, because in their mind, they want to control everything, because that's the perception of their power. That's a virus. Okay? That's what a virus is. That's a mind virus. Because their perception of power is to have more stuff. And when you have more stuff, which is the matter state, they see the matter state as being the most powerful, because that's the side through which they experience who it is that they are in a material way. So I shared this when I was about 14 years of age. You can see what they gravitate towards, the other direction. So in other words, they perceive accumulating more energy rather than giving more energy. So you can see how the torque speed difference between one going in one direction and the other one's going in the other direction, and we go in the other direction at a higher rate of speed than they do, which means they chose the right path. They chose the wrong path. That means they're slower than we are. We run a higher speed accelerator in consciousness. So on some of these other informers that are coming out through their different channels, they have a tendency not to fully explain what do we mean by superintelligence, because it gets, what they do is it's like you got to read the codes in between the lines, because they're very good. They are experts at infusing lies with truth, because they know what we know, okay? And they'll use what we know and then infuse it with their own brand of communication. So that now your consciousness is now aligned with their consciousness, because you believe with the words and the codes through which they're communicating is now running and recorded in your RAM, represented by what that is, which is their consciousness rather than what you are with yours. That's your typical salesman. That's your typical corporation. Because all you have to do is trace who it is they're associated with, and then you know. It's just like Dr. Mummy Saraki. Okay? I've been having to deal with this since I was a little kid. Okay? Who is obviously a melanated being. But you already know, because I've mentioned this many times, it's not what you look like. It's not even being able to quack like a duck and copy and talk like we do. I learned those lessons right out of the gate. Okay? When all of a sudden I realized I have one friend that I can trust, only to find out he was set up in order to get me. Okay? So this is why even with Patty Broussard, who announces herself as the commander of the Earth Defense Force, she opens up her library, says that she was on the shuttle, she has all this information, right? So I begin to realize if I was to enumerate how many beings that are conscious and aware of themselves, that present themselves in a physical form, then now I become aware of what they're aware of. I know better than that. In other words, for me, because of who I am and the job that I do, because I work with special forces, okay, it doesn't take long to take somebody down and convert her or invert her. Okay, she admitted, for example, and I give this lady, she says she's hermaphrodite. I've never seen and inspected the equipment, so I can't say. This is what I've always sort of referred to as there's hearsay, and then, or if you will, direct knowledge as a result of direct experience. Then you have indirect knowledge, which is indirect experience, which means I cannot validate, okay, who she is and exactly what she is unless I've been in her physical presence. Okay, I've been around long enough to know better. So in other words, when she's up there and she's on these videos communicating all these things, I'm checking all these boxes. It's like having in mind like a steel trap, which means if there's anything that you say ever that's inconsistent with other things that you've said, that's a red flag. Okay? Which means who you're really working for. And she could be working both sides of the fence. As a matter of fact, she could be working for multiple sides. All you got to do is go look at a movie that they shot after the end of World War II called Triple Cross. Triple Cross. Now we're back to 3. The Trinity, right? So I'm not, what I don't do is because I don't know her on a physical level, soul to soul, eyes to eyes, where I've been in the presence, where I can look directly into her eyes and experience her soul. Okay? So in other words, this is one of the pitfalls of communicating through this sort of technology, which is basically corrupted. Okay? It's because of what I know through technology, it's junk. I mean, imagine the kind of communication technology that exists, say, 1 billion years from now. Okay? So when you understand, when you come out with a particular form of technology, it's actually already obsolete. Okay? Particularly at this level of creation. And so when you already know that, you know, it's just like, get rid of this thing. And it operates through artificial intelligence. Okay? But it obviously does not serve humanity. Okay? Because it's limited. Okay? When you think of the universe of all creation, it was created with what love is, and you are what love is, which is what the light is, and your spirit is in that light, and you have the ability to go anywhere, and you have access to the information that you need in order to do the job that you do. That means you have access to the largest library. On behalf of light, because light is intelligent energy. So that intelligent energy knows another one of itself, which means I am what love is. So wherever love is, we are. Okay. So that's why we get information when we get information, in order to do the things that we do with that information that represents what the light is, because we experience that energy communicating with us. That's real energy. That's why the girl in one of the episodes said, well, how do you know what's real? Easy. When you are what love is, you're experiencing real energy because you have so much love, compassion, and empathy for everything that is alive and living in nature that you will use your energy on behalf of protecting it and healing it as a result of the wars that take place, that is using the technology in which to gain more control over what it does not love, that it gives to others, which is what love is, which simply means they're not there yet. That's the battleground. So what we're really talking about is soul consciousness evolution, where they learn through spirit, where spirit is the teacher that is in that light, which is what love is. So how fast are they learning? They're not learning fast enough, are they? So they still want to control. They still want to have all this stuff. They still want to have all their mansions, all their jets, all that technology that affords it to them. So they cut deals with each other and alliances with each other. But this method of consciousness through which they're all connected like a hive mind. Okay? So in other words, when you have an AI, all of the units of consciousness that are aware of itself are working on behalf of the singular mind. It's no different than if you walk into a corporation and you go to work for them and you sit down, say, with the board, okay? A board of directors, and you're in there. And now you have the chairman of the board. Okay, so the chairman's like the top dog, like a 4-star admiral or a 5-star admiral, which means he's the ultimate decision maker. That means that all the energy that is represented by all the units of consciousness that are represented by that energy are now answering to that one unit of consciousness, because all of their energy is now being focused on what their intentions are going to be that are driven by that mind. That's groupthink. That's a hive mind. That's how they operate. So it's like they all have connections with each other, which are all serving each other on behalf of what? That singular unit. Because that singular unit is now getting its energy through the sum of all of its parts through which it's connected. So it's no different than a beehive. Okay? All the little worker bees are all working on behalf of the queen, all the little worker bees. So these are like all the little worker bees that all work on behalf of, through their consciousness, a corporation. See the problem? That's why Karen Ann McDonald issued the documents that she did. They're simply not there yet. So I have to be mindful of the fact, because I have so much love in my heart for everything that exists within the all creation, right? Then it's the love and compassion and why I cry for them on so many levels, because they can have all this stuff. And what's really funny about how this works is that you would want them to be comfortable. You would want them to be happy and joyful and realize that I really don't need all this stuff because I can be happy without it. Which means, can you go out on a beach completely stark naked, all by yourself, and just be with the rest of the universe, knowing that you already have everything that you need, because that universe, which is conscious and aware of itself, which is what love is, which is what light is always going to give you everything that you need when you have a relationship with that energy. And I know that through experience. Which means you implicitly trust your journey because you implicitly trust the energy that you are with the soul and the spirit that's guiding you. That's the difference of knowing who's who on a spiritual battlefield. Their primary problem is control. That's the dilemma. You know, it's not that I normally consult with other sources and say, well, you got to believe what this other being says or what this book says, but I lived it. I lived it, and I learned through experience that what was said in that book is true because I experienced the truth of how that works. So I've mentioned this many times. Go to the chapter. Go pick up an edition of the 3rd edition of Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, control is their dilemma, right? Because risk, which is based on fear, is why they use technology to map things. What's going to happen in the future? See, with me, when I was a little kid, it doesn't matter because whatever it is going to be what love is, because that's what I am. So that's the absence of fear, which is the absence of risk. They're simply not there yet. That's the truth of it. A spiritual war is an energy war between units of consciousness that are aware of themselves, which is the energy that you're using to experience who they are. So what are they doing with their energy? All you got to do is observe it. Now you know who they are. In energy, what they do and use their energy for. So how is a guardian going to protect the universe that love created unless you're the most powerful force of energy that it was created with? The one. That's what I am. It's like being one with one. The center point of all creation. Because I am what love is. Because I chose to surrender to be what love is. They don't want to surrender. You know why? Fear. They don't want to let go. It's the same thing as not wanting to let go of that leash. When you have a dog on a leash, a horse with a bridle, right? Putting animals in zoos, right? And then charging admission. Everything's like an amusement park, just like the Roman arena. The salesman, the carnival barker, right? Now they, basically what happens is, hey, make me more powerful. I'll provide the Roman circus for you. And now you can send me all your money and I get rich. Now I can use that to control you with. So they build all these Truman Show sets, which are all fake through artificial intelligence. And what do? Sell poison. Snake oil. Yep. Which means they can't be trusted. They're dishonorable. They don't live up to the highest code of honor, which is super intelligence. And the super intelligence, to become super intelligent, is to become super creative. Because being super creative is the biggest, fastest accelerator of the highest intelligence. It's going to protect everything that it creates out of what love is. And that's self-evident. So we protect the universe of creation. That's the simplicity of it. That's how powerful love is. Have a beautiful day. We love you all. Be good to yourselves.